Once I feed you with an idea that you are susceptible to something, look, I can feed you with an idea that this pill that we just got from the pharmaceutical company, it's the greatest, best thing for your issue. And I give you this pill and you get better. And then later you find out it was a sugar pill and everybody goes, yeah, that's called the placebo effect. And I go, what does it really mean? I said, you didn't get healed by the pill, you got healed by the belief in the pill. And I go, well, yeah, that's what placebo is all about. And at least 1/3, minimum of 1/3 of all medical intervention is, it's a placebo effect where the healing comes from. Everybody goes, yeah, I know about the placebo. I go, yeah, but that's a result of positive thinking. What about negative thinking? And this is what we don't talk about, but the reality is it's equally powerful in regard to affecting your biology as is positive thinking, but it works in the opposite direction. A negative thought is called the nocebo effect. Can cause any disease and you can die. If you believe you're gonna die, you can die from the belief. So we really have to watch out because as psychologists would tell us, 70% or more of our thoughts are negative and redundant, replaying the same negative thoughts. I go, if thoughts had nothing to do with it, fine. But thoughts, positive or negative, shape our biology. And all of a sudden it says, well, now it's time to wake up because our negative thinking is manifesting a negative life experience. The only problem is this: when you invest so much money into a belief system, and then a belief system isn't really right, you try to hold on as long as you can because if you spend hundreds of billions of dollars in this belief, you don't want to just go, oh, okay, we'll just change it. So it's a struggle, but the reality is coming forward and the public is just becoming aware of it, and it's a revolution because, as I said, if you believe genes control your life, you're a victim of your heredity.
Right.
Yeah, okay, when I say genetic control, that's the belief that genes control our characters. When I say epigenetic control, almost sounds the same, but epi means above. So when I say epigenetic control, literally it's control above the genes. And this is what we now recognize, that the environment, and very specifically our perception of the environment, changes our genetic activity. So that means, oh wait, that's not a victim because I can change my environment, I can change my perception, and all of a sudden if I can do that, then I can control my genes.
But I actually think this is really good news. The placebo effect is excellent news because it's concrete evidence that the body holds within it innate self-repair mechanisms that can make unthinkable things happen to the body. So if you find this surprising, if you have a hard time believing that the body can heal itself, you need look no further than the Spontaneous Remission Project, a database compiled by the Institute of Noetic Sciences of over 3,500 case studies in the medical literature of patients who have gotten better from seemingly incurable illnesses. You think there's such a thing as an incurable illness? I swear, if you go look at this database, it'll blow your mind. Everything's in there. Stage 4 cancers that disappeared without treatment. HIV positive patients that became HIV negative, heart disease, kidney failure, diabetes, high blood pressure, thyroid disease, autoimmune diseases, gone. A great example of this in the medical literature is a case study from 1957 of Mr. Wright, who had advanced lymphosarcoma. So things weren't going well for Mr. Wright. Time was really running out. He had tumors the size of oranges in his armpits, his neck, his chest, his abdomen, his liver and his spleen were enlarged, and his lungs were filling up with 2 quarts of milky fluid every day that had to be drained in order for him to breathe. But Mr. Wright wasn't giving up hope. He had heard about this wonder drug called Krebiozin, and he was begging his doctor, come on, just give me some of that Krebiozin, it's all gonna be good. Now, unfortunately, the Krebiozin was only available on a research protocol, and the protocol required that the doctor be able to make an assessment that says that this guy has at least 3 months to live. And his doctor, Dr. West, just couldn't do that. But Mr. Wright was tenacious, and he didn't give up. He kept badgering his doctor until finally his doctor was like, okay, fine, I'll give you the Krebiozin. So he dosed him up on a Friday, not expecting that Mr. Wright would make it through the weekend. But to his utter shock, when Dr. West came in to do rounds on Monday, Mr. Wright was up walking around the wards, and his tumors had shrunk to half their original size. They had melted like snowballs on a hot stove, and 10 days after getting the Krebiozin, they were gone. So Mr. Wright was up rocking and rolling, like praising Krebiozin as the miracle drug he believed it to be for 2 months, until the initial reports came out about Krebiozin that said that it didn't really look like Krebiozin was working so well. And Mr. Wright fell into a deep depression, and his cancer came back. So this time Dr. West decided to get sneaky, and he told his patient that, that Krebbiosum that you got, that was a tainted version, really not so good. But I got us some ultra pure, highly concentrated Krebbiosum. This stuff's got it going on. He then injected Mr. Wright with nothing but distilled water. And once again, the tumors disappeared. The fluid in his lungs went away. Mr. Wright was up rocking and rolling for another 2 months. And then the American Medical Association blew it by publishing a nationwide study that proved definitively Krebbiosum was worthless. 2 days later, Mr. Wright, after hearing this news, died. Soon after that, I came across another study in the medical literature that was the stuff of fairy tales. 3 baby girls were born, delivered by a midwife on Friday the 13th in the Okefenokee Swamp near the Georgia-Florida border. And the midwife pronounced that these 3 babies born on such a fateful day were all hexed. The first, she said, would die before her 16th birthday. The second, before her 21st. The third, before her 23rd birthday. And as it turned out, the first girl died the day before her 16th birthday. The second died the day before her 21st birthday. And the third girl, who knew what had happened to the other 2, got wind of that. On the day before her 23rd birthday, she showed up at the hospital hyperventilating, begging them to make sure she survived. She wound up dying that night. So these 2 case studies are great examples from the medical literature of the placebo effect and its opposite, the nocebo effect. So Mr. Wright, when he got that distilled water and his tumors melted away, that's a great example of the placebo effect, when you get a seemingly inert treatment, and yet something is happening physiologically in the body such that disease goes away. The nocebo effect is the opposite. So the 3 hexed girls are an example of the nocebo effect, when the mind's belief that something bad is going to happen in the body then comes to manifest. So the scientific literature, the medical journals like the New England Journal of Medicine and the Journal of the American Medical Association, these scientific journals are full of evidence that the placebo effect and the nocebo effect are incredibly powerful. We've known this since the 1950s, and we've seen countless case studies that show that in almost everything you study, if you give people a fake treatment, a sugar pill, a saline injection, or most effectively, a fake surgery, 18 to 80% of the time, people get better. And it's not just in their mind. That's what I thought in the beginning, like, oh, they're just feeling better, they're thinking better. But it's not, it's actually in their physiology. This is measurable. You can actually see what happens to the body. So, for example, patients getting placebos were found to have ulcers that healed, colons that became less inflamed, bronchi that dilated, warts that disappeared. Cells looked different under the microscope. It's provable. It's happening in the body, even though it's initiated by the mind. So when you look at these, some of the studies are just amazing. I love the Rogaine study. So, you get a bunch of bald men, you give them placebos, they grow hair. The opposite is also true. So if you give people a placebo and you tell them it's chemotherapy, they vomit and they lose their hair. So this is really happening in the body. And the question that I had is it just the mind's positive belief that's making this happen? Not according to Harvard researcher Ted Kaptchuk. According to him, he thinks that the most essential part is actually the nurturing care of a healthcare provider, more so even than the mind's positive belief. That some of the studies actually say the doctor is the placebo, or can be. So Ted Kaptchuk wanted to study this, and he did a great study looking at patients that were getting placebos for an illness, for treatment of an illness, and he told them, you're getting a placebo. There's nothing in here, inert ingredients, nothing active. They still got better. Most likely, Kaptchuk postulated, because they felt tended, nurtured. They felt like they were doing something. They felt like somebody cared. So to say that you can heal yourself is sort of a misnomer. The body can heal itself. The body has these innate natural self-repair mechanisms. But the scientific data proves that you need the tending, nurturing care of a healthcare provider of some sort, of a healer, to facilitate that process. It's not an easy process to go through alone. So it makes a big difference if somebody else is holding that positive belief with you. But the problem is, while the doctor can be the placebo, the doctor can also be the nocebo. So what patients need from us as healthcare providers, they need us to be forces of healing, not forces of fear or pessimism. So every time your doctor tells you you have an incurable illness, you're going to have to take that medication for the rest of your life. Or God forbid you get cancer and they say you've got a 5% 5-year survival rate. It's really no different than when that midwife told those 3 baby girls that they were hexed. It's a form of medical hexing that's so prevalent. As doctors, we think we're being realistic. We're giving people the kind of information we think they need to know, but we actually can be harming them. Instead, we need to be more like Dr. West, taking that distilled water. Really, Mr. Wright, I promise, this is going to do it for you. But do we have to count on our doctors to dupe us? Do we have to get fake surgeries and fake drugs and wind up in clinical trials? This is what led the next phase of my research. So in my last TEDx talk, I talked about a new wellness model that I developed called the Whole Health Cairn. And this came about as part of my research, trying to find how else can we harness this mind's power that's clearly evidenced by the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. Can we do something without being in a clinical trial? And my hypothesis was that in order to heal ourselves, in order to be optimally healthy, we need more than just a good diet, a regular exercise program, getting enough sleep, taking your vitamins, following your doctor's orders. Those things are all great and critical, important. But I also came to believe that we need healthy relationships, a healthy professional life, a healthy creative life, a healthy spiritual life, a healthy sex life, a healthy financial life, a healthy environment. In essence, we need a healthy mind. So I wanted to try to prove this, and I went into the medical literature, and the copious data that I found proving that all of those things are essential really blew my mind. I compiled them all into my upcoming book, Mind Over Medicine, Scientific Proof You Can Heal Yourself. But I want to give you a few highlights about what this is all about. So you can see from the Whole Health Cairn that all of these facets are built upon a foundation stone that I call your inner pilot light. And for me, that's that essential, authentic part of you that knows what's true for you, that's willing to tell you the truth about maybe what's out of alignment in your life, what stones in your Whole Health Cairn might be out of balance. And as you see, I've put the body, physical health, on the top of the Whole Health Cairn because it's the most fragile, the most precarious, and the most easy to kind of fall out of balance if other things in your life aren't going so well. So what I found in the medical data is that relationships matter. People who have a strong social network have half the rate of heart disease compared to those who are lonely. Married people are twice as likely to live long lives than unmarried people. In fact, curing your loneliness may be the most important measure of prevention you can enact upon your body, more so than quitting smoking or starting to exercise. Your spiritual life matters. Those who attend religious services live up to 14 years longer. Your professional life matters. You really can work yourself to death. In Japan, they call it karoshi, death by overwork. And people who survive, the survivors of those who die of karoshi can actually apply for workman's comp-like benefits in Japan. But it's not just Japan, it's actually happening even more in the United States. We just don't get benefits here. So they did one study and they found that people who fail to take their vacation are actually a third more likely to get heart disease. Your attitude really matters. Happy people live 7 to 10 years longer than unhappy people. And optimists are 77% less likely to get heart disease than pessimists. So how does this happen? What's happening in the brain that's making the body change? This was what was fascinating to me. What I found is that the brain communicates with all the cells in the body via hormones and neurotransmitters. So for example, if you have a negative thought, belief, or feeling in the brain, your brain triggers this as a threat. Something's wrong. If you feel lonely or pessimistic, things are bad at work, you're in a toxic relationship, the amygdala says, threat, threat, threat. And it turns on the hypothalamus that talks to the pituitary gland, that communicates with the adrenal gland, and the adrenal gland starts spitting out stress hormones like cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine. It turns on what Walter Cannon at Harvard called the stress response that triggers the sympathetic nervous system and puts you into that fight or flight mode, which is adaptive, it's protective if you're running away from a mountain lion, But in everyday life, you're supposed to have that quick stress response if there's a threat, and then it's supposed to switch right off. This isn't what happens in our regular lives these days. So fortunately, there's a counterbalancing relaxation response that Herbert Benson at Harvard described. And when this comes about, the stress response turns off, the parasympathetic nervous system turns on, and healing hormones like oxytocin, dopamine, nitric oxide, endorphins fill the body and bathe every cell in the body. What I found the most amazing about this is that those natural self-repair mechanisms that we all have, they only flip on when the nervous system is relaxed. So when you're having stress responses, that all those natural self-repair mechanisms get flipped off. The body's too busy trying to fight or flee in order to heal itself. So when you think about this, you have to start to wonder, like, how can I possibly start to change the balance in my own body? So one study showed that on average, we have more than 50 stress responses per day. And if you're lonely or depressed or pessimistic or unhappy at work or in a miserable relationship, that number is going to be more than twice as many. Now, the relaxation response is what researchers think explains the placebo effect. So when you're going to get supposedly maybe a new wonder drug, you don't know whether you're getting the placebo or not, it triggers that relaxation response, that combination of the mind's positive belief and the nurturing care of a healthcare provider relaxes the nervous system. And then all those natural self-repair mechanisms can come into play. Fortunately, though, you don't have to be in a clinical trial to turn on your relaxation responses. There are lots of simple, pleasurable activities that turn on the relaxation responses, and these have been proven in the medical literature. So you can meditate. You can express yourself creatively. You can get a massage, do yoga or Tai Chi. You can go out with your friends. You can do work that you love. You can have sex. You can laugh. You can exercise. You can play with animals. So I ask you to consider the whole health cairn in your own life. Which stones in your whole health cairn might be out of balance? Each of these stones can be a factor for creating stress responses or relaxation responses. How might you turn on more relaxation responses in your body? And most importantly, what does your body need in order to heal? What prescription do you need to write for yourself? And are you going to be brave enough to take action on the truth of what your inner pilot light already knows? I believe our system, our healthcare system, is badly broken, and it's largely because we've lost respect for the body's ability to heal itself. The medical establishment has gotten arrogant. We've come to think that with all of our modern technology and all that we've learned in the past century, that we've mastered nature, and we find it repelling to think that maybe nature could be better than we are sometimes. And yet, spontaneous remissions from incurable diseases are proof that sometimes nature's just better than we are. It's a narcissistic wound for physicians. We don't know what to do with that. It makes us feel helpless and hopeless and useless. But fortunately, we're needed. The physician and all the other healthcare providers are absolutely essential to this process. We need to embrace this. And patients need to change their outlooks on this as well. It's not just doctors. We need patients to stop thinking that your body is not your business, taking your power and handing it over to other healthcare providers. Your body is your business, and your mind has tremendous power to communicate with your body such that your body can heal itself. So I once had a dream, and in my dream, I was standing there looking at these mountainsides full of millions of people that were standing shoulder to shoulder, and they were all facing due north, dressed in all these tribal garbs, beautiful colors, covering the mountainsides like a quilt. And there was a bright, streaming light on their face, and everyone was facing this light. And that's what I think of when I think of healthcare. I think of all of us standing up and facing the light. So please stand with me for a moment. It's going to take all of us. Just because things have gotten bad doesn't mean they can't get better. I believe that just like there are no incurable illnesses, there are no incurable systems. But it's going to take all of us needing to open our heart and open our minds and bring care back to healthcare. So please hold hands with your fellow neighbor, and let's just set the intention right here that things are going to be different from now on, that we can start this grassroots effort, that it all starts with you. Be the love that you want to see in healthcare, and I believe miracles can happen. As we do this, you're releasing oxytocin, dopamine. You start to heal yourself. And as we do so, we can heal healthcare. Thank you.
I thought this was so well thought out and so well placed. He basically says, the group did help him through one of the darkest chapters of his life. When his brother had died, he didn't know what his own purpose was, what he was going to make of his own life, or how to get out of the drugs and the violence and everything that he was involved in at the time. He found the group, and it gave him a sense of purpose. It ultimately gave him a family. It gave him stability. And all of that was something that he says saved him. But then when he started to learn about the dark aspects of the group, the parts that were hidden, the parts that weren't true, it changed his perspective. And as soon as he realized that all of the messages, all of the sayings, all the symbolism, all of everything was not based in anything that was legitimate, but was simply a fictional creation of a charismatic spiritual healer type person, then it lost its ability to provide that comfort because it was not real.
But a real fucking revolution is at its core spiritual. It is a complete decimation of one's priorities, beliefs, and way of living, and reconstruction in the spirit of you have to create a new God, or gods, or whatever you can, but it is imperative that you believe in something greater than yourself. All right? And it can't be the ocean or your favorite song, and it can't be the movement or the people or the words. You've got to believe in the poetry, because everything else in your life will fail you, including yourself.
Sometimes I find myself asking, how can anyone still believe in God? With what we know about the world now, how can anyone still believe that the Bible is true? Is it just brainwashing? If you tell a child every day that bananas are poisonous, that child will probably get sick if they eat a banana. It's psychosomatic, you see? They know they've eaten poison. They know they've eaten poison because that's what they've been told their entire lives. So of course they feel sick. Of course they feel as if they've been poisoned. Think about the placebo effect. You give a patient sugar pills, no medicine in them at all, and they feel better. The pills helped because the patient believes they've helped. Oddly enough, even if you tell the patient they've taken a placebo, it still makes them feel a little bit better. Not as much, but it still makes them feel better, which is kind of like eating a dog turd and believing it tastes like a fucking Milky Way. But I guess that there is some subjectivity even in objective experience. What is God? A placebo. Really, God is a placebo. I know that's not an original observation to me, but it really is the truth. The universe is big and scary. People you love are dying. Everything's gone to shit. Well, don't worry, buddy, because guess what? Guess what, buddy? God has got your back. It may not seem like he does. It may not seem like it. You know, even if your son rapes your daughter and your wife kills herself and you're fired from your job and your dog gets a brain tumor and you need $5,000 worth of dental work because you've got abscessed teeth and your car breaks down and your house is foreclosed on and your left hand mysteriously stops working, oh God, what's going on? Don't fear, because God's got your back. You see, all of this shit you're going through now, that's just a test. That's just a test. Of course it's just a test. That's not what life's all about. Once this pitiful mortal body dies, you will go to heaven, a land of eternal bliss, where you will basically float on a cloud of silk and play Xbox and get blown by whatever kind of person or thing you want to get blown by, or if you want to get blown at all. And if you're a female, then you're getting eaten out. If you want to be eaten out, whatever, it's heaven. Whatever your idea of paradise is, that's what's gonna fucking exist there, and there's gonna be no suffering. And you know how, like, sometimes you wake up and your back kind of hurts or you got a stiff neck or something? That don't fucking happen in heaven. You just feel good all the goddamn time, better than you ever felt here on earth, all right? That's heaven. And it's a placebo. It's a placebo. It doesn't really do anything but make you feel better. That's all it does. How? By giving you a new perspective. by telling you that all the suffering you're going through now should be looked at in the larger context of your immortal life of pure bliss in a magical kingdom that you will go to after you die.
What's a god? Can we even know they exist? People believe things, which means they're real. That means we know they exist. So what came first, gods or the people who believed in them?
Alright, so where was all this before I met you?
On the periphery, just outside. There's always a window. People are frightened to look through it. Safer in the prison cell.
We're not safe now.
No, we're not.
Who are you?
If I told you, you wouldn't believe me.
If it's real in your mind, it's real in the world.
Why do you kill off the members of your own group? What's the point of that?
I am not forcing anything on anyone. They are merely practicing a faith that they decided to believe in of their own free will. Tell me, why do you think people believe in God? Because they want to. It's not easy living in such an ugly, corrupt world. There is no certainty and nothing to hope for. People are lost, so they reach out. Don't you get it? God didn't create humans. No, it's humans who created God.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
How long have you worked with Sibyl?
Ya va a ser como 38 años de empecé a joder con esta cosa. Van aprendiendo de procurar todo lo que haga.
Who taught you how to heal with plants?
No hace nada curable con la planta. La gente sí. No hace nada curable con la planta. La gente sí. No hace nada curable con la planta. La gente sí. No hace nada curable con la planta. La gente sí. No hace nada curable con la planta. La gente sí.
I must take your heart. I must weigh your heart.
Against a feather. I can already tell you who wins. I lived my life, good and bad. Definitely not light as a feather. Where are you going? Where am I going?
You pass through.
Where do I pass through?
In life, you believed in nothing. You will go to nothing. You will be done. There will be darkness.
In peace?
There will be darkness.
You know what? No.
There is nowhere else for you to be.
Well, I'm not getting in there. I want to go back.
Already your flesh has been moved, has been cut by the doctors who inspected your organs. Already your loved ones have selected for you the clothes to shroud your decomposition. Already you are in the ground. Tears have fallen for you.
Do I get a say in this?
Death is not a debate. How many do you think have come before you? All with promises and threats and offers of glory, gold, love. Who are you to misguide me from my duty? You are but a man, not even one I should remember. You will go into the darkness, and I will forget ever having met you.
Fuck.
You see, the amount of people who one can cripple through superstition and send their lives down this abysmal spiral, it is shocking. These things like tarot cards, these things like astrology. Now, astrology, when it's presented in the papers and stuff like this, it's usually just positive, usually. So, oh, you're going to meet someone wonderful. Oh, there's going to be a change up in your life. Oh, this... oh, there's a new opportunity coming your way. Oh, there's a... your Bonham statements. Right, so... those things in and of themselves, I suppose, just dumb people down. But they're not that dangerous. But the problem is, you see, once you get people hooked on things, and they easily become hooked to superstition, then they feel, especially with the other, see, like these kind of just, where you have something pleasant but ominous or mysterious being said, like Chinese fortune cookies. You know, these things are just nonsense, but they don't usually cause harm. But other superstitious practices, like sometimes palmistry, tarot cards, you know, where you say things like death. You tell people, oh, your lifeline, oh, you will suffer much in life. Unfortunately, you will, or, you know, there's misfortune coming your way. What you do is on many occasions the butterfly effect. It's the fluttering of these wings thousands of miles away that has some strange impact on a hurricane somewhere else. You see, you set into motion a series of tragic events for that individual, who himself or herself fulfills them as a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is crazy as hell, but it is being proven through scientific experiments how people, see, once you give them this pessimism, they enact it. But the flip side to this is you can actually do the same with optimism.
You stay back! I'll kill you, you stay away!
We've been waiting for you, Caroline. Waiting for you to believe. It doesn't work if you don't believe.
In the time, Lord, from the dry dust out of the chains, the devil's house.
I don't...
In the time, Lord, take me.
Oh, I think you do.
Flesh.
Flesh.
I don't believe. I don't believe.
Flesh. The poor.
I don't believe.
The frail. The weak.
I don't believe. I don't. No. I
that it could exist, and the fact that it was feared so deeply meant that it did exist.
Cecile? You alright?
You're fine now, Justify.
A bit harder than the lawyer, wasn't she?
It's harder every time. They just don't believe like they used to. Gotta get them riled up. They just don't believe like they used to. Gotta get them riled up. They just don't believe like they used to. Gotta get them riled up. They just don't believe like they used to. Gotta get them riled up.
What are you? Do you know me? Do you know what I am? Do you want to know my name?
Tell me.
This is what I am called. I am called Glad of War, Grim, Raider, and Third. I am One-Eye. I am also called Highest and True Guesser. I am Grimnir and the Hooded One. I am All-Father, Gondlier, One-Bearer. I have as many names as there are winds, as many titles as there are ways to die. My ravens are Hugin and Moonin, thought and memory. My wolves are Fakey and Gary. My horse is the gallows. I am
People say this is the age of technology. They're wrong. This is the age of manipulation. Trickery is what I do best.
What is it? What do you understand so far about that default mode network?
It's quite an elaborate system, and if you take a look at its individual parts, you have to come away with the sense that the functions we can now associate with that have a self-referential component to them.
Meaning what? Meaning
well, for example,
that
if
something is going to affect me?
There is a self-referential connection between the memory and me as a person. That we were an actor in the event. What did I have for breakfast? Where was I yesterday? When did I meet this person? And so forth. So memory is a component of it, but it is a special part of memory, it seems, that has this self-referential component. Something else that is very important, if you then leap to the front of the default mode network, one of the distinguishing features are the areas there that are very often associated in general with emotion, but more specifically about the evaluation of incoming information to the brain. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this dangerous? And whatever.
And then it would be based on previous experience?
Almost for sure. And actually, it has also been associated with the mental state of other people. In other words, this theory of mind that
Why, Mr. Anderson? Why?
Why do you do it? Why? Why get up? Why keep fighting? You believe you're fighting for something, for more than your survival? Can you tell me what it is? Do you even know?
Is it freedom or truth? Perhaps peace? Could it be for love? Illusions, Mr. Anderson, vagaries of perception. Temporary constructs of a feeble human intellect trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. And all of them as artificial as the Matrix itself.
Although only a human mind could invent something as insipid as love.
You must be able to see it, Mr. Anderson. You must know it by now. You can't win. It's pointless to keep fighting. Why, Mr. Anderson? Why? Why do you persist?
Because I choose to. Our species, Homo sapiens, we emerged from Homo erectus, Heidelbergensis, Agaster, about
150,000, 100,000 years ago, our brains grew gradually and they got to the point that they are at today. Why did we start to need to believe?
Well, we're a social animal, and social groups coalesce around belief systems. And it's a very powerful mechanism to identify who's a member of your group, especially if you have to take their beliefs on trust in the absence of evidence. But of course, our brains have evolved to try and make sense of the world, to try and predict it. And an unpredictable world is pretty frightening. So if you don't know what's going to happen with the crops or the migration of animals, you might try and engage in some activities to try and control that. That's just in our nature to do this. So I can see the origins of rituals as serving a purpose to try and explain the world around you, but also as a mechanism to kind of coalesce social groups.
What about dealing with mortality, understanding mortality and finding solace for those we've lost? Was that an important factor, do you think?
Absolutely. I think the fact that there were ritual practices in graves must have been some sense of the afterlife. I think most of us still have this urge and need to know what's going to happen to us, so that's never really going to go away. And of course, if someone provides a very good story about what happens, then that's easily understood and accepted.